Hello, this video is going to be a very grounding, focused on breath Yin Yoga sequence. Welcome. I'm going to be showing you a Yin Yoga sequence that is very grounding, like physically taking our bodies to the ground. It's a great way to de-stress and relax if you're under stress, anxiety, or if you just have a bunch of swirling thoughts going around in your head in all different directions. With Yin, on a scale of 1 to 10, you want the intensity of these poses to be at about a 5. So in Yin, we don't go fully into every stretch. It's finding your edge, and that means pretending that on a scale of 1 to 10, if you can do the splits, you're not going to go all the way there. You're just going to go part way there. In Yin, we come to stillness and quiet. We find a pose where we can sustain that for several minutes. We'll take a moment to fidget and get settled in, and then I'll ask you to just find stillness. And there are a lot of different variations for these poses, so I will show you a lot of different versions, give you time to settle in, and then we will just come to stillness, and all of these poses are going to be very low to the ground. Before we start, if you don't have one, pause the video and go grab either a bolster. I will be using this bolster, but you can get a cushion off of your couch. You can get several pillows. I will have the option to use yoga blocks and a blanket or a heavy towel or something that you can fold up and use as a padding, as a cushion. So pause the video if you need to go run and gather up those things, and then come back. We'll start in child's pose. A lot of different variations for this. If you have knee issues, hang on and I'll show you some different versions. You can start by putting a blanket or a towel under your knees for padding, if that's more comfortable for you. Have that bolster nearby and a yoga block. We'll start by coming to tabletop pose, and then take your knees wide towards the edges of your mat with your toes touching. And from here, we're going to sink our tailbone back down towards our heels. If this is not comfortable for your knees, you can take a blanket or a towel and put it between your thigh and your calves. It'll give a little cushion for you to rest on, and it'll take that angle out of your knees. From here, we're going to just drape our bodies forward, down towards the ground. A lot of different arm options. First off, you can tuck a block under your forehead if you have a hard time coming all the way down. Your arms can be reaching out in front of you. Or you can bend your elbows with your hands on top of each other and rest your forehead right there. You can put your forehead to a block. If you'd like to and it's comfortable for you, you can take your head all the way down to the ground. If this is hard, another thing is to grab some pillows or couch cushions and put it right here, and you're literally just going to lay your belly and your chest on top of that, right here. So take a moment, settle in, find a spot where you feel like you can hold it and stay there and be comfortable for a few minutes. One last version of this pose, if you're really flexible, is to take 2 yoga blocks where your elbows would be, and then put your elbows up on those blocks, and it'll extend the stretch a little bit. I'll show you what that looks like. And from here, you can have your hands in prayer hands, or just rest your hands behind your back. So from here, we'll take a moment. Find whichever version of this pose feels best to you, someplace where you can just really settle in and relax. And then when you get there, I'll ask you to bring your focus to your breath. You're welcome to close your eyes if that's comfortable. And focus on what your breath feels like in your body. Notice what your rib cage is doing as you breathe in and out. Notice all of the parts of your body that are connected to the ground right now. you find your thoughts wandering, just bring your attention back to your breath. If you need to make adjustments in this pose, go ahead. But in Yin Yoga, we try to come to a place of stillness and quiet. Focus on your breath. Settle in here and feel yourself sinking down towards the ground. And we'll come back together in a minute. As you're ready, if you have blocks under your elbows, you can set those off to the side. Take 2 last deep breaths in, full expansion of your ribs. Complete exhale. Once more. Then gently go ahead and walk your hands towards your head, towards either side, and use those hands to press back up. And from here we'll come into tabletop pose. So just come onto your hands and knees. And we won't be here long, but we're just going to sway our hips out. Just maybe do a few little hip circles. And then go ahead and come to a seat. So maybe you roll over onto one side, onto your hips. Bring your legs out in front of you. We'll come into butterfly pose. And we'll just stay here for a few seconds and maybe roll side to side. Get those hips stretched out. And then we're going to come to lying down on our backs, and we're going to do a reclined pigeon. So go ahead and come with your seat to the middle of the mat. Hold on to the back of your thighs and lower all the way down. And from here, keep both knees bent up towards the ceiling, both soles of your feet to the mat. Lift up your left foot and cross your left ankle over your right thigh. So you're welcome to just stay right here if you feel a hip stretch in that left hip. What we're going to aim for is to bring this left leg towards our chest to get a stretch in our back leg. You can do that by reaching your hand through and holding behind your thigh with clasped fingers. And notice your left hip, or you can even, if you really want to, reach around to your shin. Another option would be to just have that leg straight if you can. Find a spot here where you can relax, where you can just settle in. On these left toes, try flexing them up towards the ceiling, activating that foot. If you'd like to, you can close your eyes here. Take a few breaths and just notice what the ground feels like under your back. Maybe on your shoulder blades, on the back of your head, all the way down your spine. Just connect to the ground. And breathe at your own natural rate. And try to come to a place of stillness. your mind is wandering, just bring your focus back to your breath. Pay attention to what your spine and your ribs feel like against the ground as you're breathing in and out. Take 2 last deep breaths together, full breath. Then go ahead and unclasp your hands, lower that right leg to the ground, and then take your left foot back to the ground. Maybe do a few windshield wiper motions here. Sway those hips side to side, knees side to side. We'll come to the opposite side now. So both soles of your feet to the mat. Lift up your right foot and bring that right ankle over the left thigh. If you feel a stretch in your outer hip here, you can just stay right here. Otherwise, you can bring this right shin towards your chest by reaching through and holding on the back of your thigh or onto your calf. Find a spot that feels good to you. Some place where you can come to stillness. Settle into this pose. It might feel different than your other side. That's very normal. Try to flex these right toes, point them up towards the ceiling. And then again, bring your focus back to your breath. Notice what your spine and your hips and shoulders and head feel like connected to the ground. Just come to stillness here, and we'll come back together in a minute. Take 2 deep breaths together. Full inhale, completely expand your ribs. Full exhale, use your belly to press all of the air out. One more. And then release your hands and take that left foot back to the ground. Uncross that right ankle. Both soles of your feet to the mat, and then walk your feet out wide. Windshield wiper both knees to the right, both knees to the left. And we're going to end with one of my favorite lying down twists. So pay attention to this because I'm going to ask you to shift your hips in one direction first. So if you need to, have a mat or yoga blocks nearby, something that you can use to prop your knees up with if you'd like to. Just make sure it's within reach. With your knees bent, soles of your feet to the mat, lift your hips up about 1 inch and shift your hips about 3 inches to the left, and then let both knees fall to the right. So your knees will fall in the opposite direction to the way that you shifted your hips. From here, you can Tuck a blanket between your knees if that's comfortable, or put a blanket under both knees. You can also play with how far down towards your feet your knees are, or you can bring them up closer to your head. Find a spot where you feel a nice twist in your spine. Both shoulder blades are rooted down into the mat. Really notice how that feels, pressed into the floor, but your left hip is going to be popped up towards the ceiling. You're welcome to maybe hold on with that right hand and gently press those knees a little bit further towards the ground. If you'd like to add a little bit of a side and rib stretch here, take your left hand palm up and then glide it up along the floor overhead until it's up above you. And notice if you feel a stretch in your left side. Take a couple of deep breaths here and just really notice your shoulders and your right hip settling into the ground. Pay attention to using your belly, not just your ribs, to breathe in and out here. And just come to stillness. Before we come out of this pose, we'll take 2 really deep breaths together. Full inhale, be sure to use your belly also to pull air in. Press all of the air out. Another deep breath in. And out. And as you're ready, you can use your right hand to help bring those knees back up towards the ceiling. Lift up your hips a little bit and straighten out. Find your center line since we made that adjustment. Maybe let both knees windshield wiper right and left. Reset our hips and our spine before we bring that twist to the other side. Come back to center. And then this time lift your hips up about 1 inch and shift about 3 inches to the right. And then let both knees fall sideways to the left. Again, use a blanket or yoga blocks to prop up your knees if you'd like to here. Go ahead and settle in. Find a spot that feels good to you where both of your shoulders are connected to the floor and your left hip is connected to the floor, but your right hip is angled up towards the ceiling. If you'd like to, you can put that left hand on your thigh and just very gently guide those legs further down towards the ground. And then if you would like to add that side and rib stretch, your right hand can come palm up and then glide that hand along the floor, up overhead, and notice how that brings a stretch into your ribs and your side. And here in this pose, focus on your shoulders and your left hip, how they're connecting with the ground, even your right arm. Bring your attention to your breath. Just pay attention to what that feels like, especially in the right ribs as you're breathing in and out. And come to stillness. And we'll come back together in a minute. Take 2 breaths together here before we come out of this pose. If you'd like to, you can put a hand on your belly. Pay attention to bringing in a complete inhale. Fill up your lungs all the way. Full exhale. Press all that air out. One more full breath in and out. And from here, if you had a yoga block or a blanket by your knees, go ahead and take that out. Use your left hand to bring those legs back up to center. Lift up your hips and straighten that out again. Find your center line. And we'll do one more windshield wiper, both knees to the right, both to the left. And come back to center, and we're going to take 2 last deep breaths together here. So you're welcome to keep your knees bent, or you can take your legs out long and feel a stretch. If you'd like to, you can bring your arms up overhead. And then wherever you're at, we'll take a deep breath in. Start with your belly first. Fill your belly, ribs, chest, collarbones. Complete exhale, all the air out. Last deep breath, belly, ribs, chest, collarbones. Full exhale. Thank you for joining me in this grounding Yin Yoga flow. It's a wonderful way to just connect with your breath. Focus on what the ground feels like below you, and hopefully de-stress. Thank you and namaste.